smart people. And those people are thrown out of the country. We can't do that.
Well, you ran on America.
So this interview was in July, and Laura Ingraham, boy, oh boy, she let him have it, and I'm glad. So Donald Trump, first of all, Donald Trump, what you need to realize is that the person that protects this country the most is God. And I really think that you need to do some reflecting and you need to do some praying. Because when you can throw your base under the bus, okay, and that's what you've done, because for 8 years you pushed America first, and now you're saying because there's going to be all these companies coming in that we need the best and the brightest, and yes, that means Americans, but we don't have enough Americans. Well, Donald Trump, there's never been any statistics done on how many H-1B visas are labor trafficked. I was shocked to find that. I just found it out last night. I looked it up. There's never been any studies done. We know that there's at least 15% of people trafficked. And you should care about this, Donald Trump, because I know for sure that during your first term that was important to you. I know personally it was. So something's changed. I guess, Silicon Valley rolling into Mar-a-Lago changed all that, huh? Yeah. Elon Musk on top of it, the person that doesn't even support free speech, and yet tells people to work 80 hours a week. So here's my point, is that you're saying that these smart people are being thrown out of the country. How do you know that? When there's not even been any studies done on how many of the visa programs, most especially H-1B, how many of those visa holders end up being coerced to come here and then they're stuck because their employer is their sponsor. Since there's never been any studies done on that, Donald Trump, don't you think there should be before you go running off in this area? But you won't. You're not going to. You're going to do whatever you want to do, which is fine. You don't have to listen to your base, even though they supported you, even though they got you elected. It wasn't Elon Musk. But I'll tell you what's going to happen, because you're being a typical Republican. Typical Republican. And that's that. No, we have to do this because we have to compete. Oh, that's the reason we had to make weapons. That's the reason we had to go to wars. We have to compete. We have to be better than China. We have to be better. We have to compete. Okay, and then what happens, Donald Trump, when with every other Republican that's done that, is the American people get screwed over, especially the middle class. And that is who came out to the polls for you. And it's like there's this switch that happened from the moment you were elected. And I honestly thought you had integrity. I thought your legacy would matter to you. But you're doing the same talking point bullshit that every other Republican does. We have to compete with the rest of the world. And yes, you said we have plenty of smart American workers, but we don't have enough people. Okay. But you don't even know how, Musk has said himself that, how many violations have been put against him when it comes to worker problems. He says himself, they need to be, look at Jeff Bezos. Some of those workers they can't even leave their station to go pee. They have to pee in a can. So don't you think there should be a study done on how many of the H-1B visa holders are actually tricked into coming here? And then once they get here, they find out the working conditions are horrible. They have no quality of life. They have to work 80 hours a week. And yet, if they speak up and say anything about it, they'll be deported. Don't you think there should be a study, Donald Trump, on that before you just make this claim that we're throwing these smart people out of the country? America First was supposed to be about Americans, and suddenly you're elected. It's no longer about Americans. It's just about, no, we need more than just Americans. Well, I'll tell you something. I don't think that God would support indentured servitude. And since some of these visa programs, most especially H-1B, have major problems to them, and you said yourself, see, this is where you lied to your base, Donald Trump, and here's the problem you're going to have, okay? Because you did say it when you were debating back during your first term running. You said that H-1Bs shouldn't be allowed. You said it yourself. You said you had used them before, but that you shouldn't be allowed to. Now that's changed because your head has gotten so big that we're just going to make the world great again. We're going to do let's make globalism great again. Is that where we're at now? So you haven't even been inaugurated yet. And have already sided with all of Silicon Valley. You're buddies with the very man that suppresses speech and told your base to go F themselves, basically, to go F themselves in the face. And that's who you've aligned with. I said a while ago, I said either Donald Trump lied to his base or he's lying to Silicon Valley and leading them along. And I thought, well, God, Donald Trump has integrity. He cares about that kind of stuff. But after hearing this interview, and this was in July, it's become aware to me that you too have become worldly. And you're using the same excuse every Republican uses. We have to compete. We have to compete. So the next thing you know, we're going to have to make all these weapons, and we have to do it. You know what? The middle of America is sick of hearing that bullshit. Because that's always the excuse then to take more of our taxes and to screw us all over. So then I guess we can say that you lied to your base. The very people that got you elected. Bravo. Nicely done. And you may look out at it all and say to yourself, no, in the end, people will see how great it is. Okay. But you cared more about people that are silencing Americans, cared more about Elon Musk than you did your base that stood with you for 8 years. You really should do some reflecting. And if you're a God-fearing man, which I assume you are, you should pray. You should pray and ask God if what your vision is aligns with his. Because the other problem with this is the culture problem. And I don't mean that in a racist way. I just mean that when people just come here because it's all about money, Donald Trump, then they could care less about America, most especially if they're working for people that are putting them in poor conditions and they're working 80 hours a week. That's why they just end up hating America, and that ends up having a ripple effect on our country. People who love America should want to come here. And yet you seem just focused on money, 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 money. Unbelievable. For 8 years, you talked about America first. But as soon as Silicon Valley started rolling into Mar-a-Lago, well, that all changed. Even before that, really, because why this interview, because I hadn't seen this interview with Laura Ingraham, why didn't you ever talk about any of this in any of your rallies? That you wanted to bring, I'm not against the visa programs, but the H-1Bs, you said yourself. So none of us really know what to believe with you at this point. That's the problem. Very disappointing, and you don't seem to want to. You only care about what Silicon Valley and Elon Musk have to say. You could care less about what your base says. So, yeah, you know what? You should really reflect and pray and maybe realize that sometimes you're wrong. And that when you betray the most important people that voted for you and that ran out to the polls for you, then it's time for you to sit back and do some reflecting.